2026. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Aboud, Mr. Drummond, Mr. George,
Here.
Ms. Rajusco,
Here.
Ms. Kescometti,
Here.
Mr. Mercer,
Present.
Mr. O'Gorman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Yes.
I'd like to mock Mr. Drummond, at least initially, due to prior commitment and
Board for Mr. O'Gorman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We're not equipped with a flag in here, but I know there's one by the football field, so we will assume that's our flag.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda or a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. George, at this time, I'd like to move that we approve the agenda as published. Support.
Support from Mrs. Kescometti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. First up is the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda. Number 1 is approve the May 19, 2026 regular village council meeting minutes. Number 2, file bills recapped as of June 1st, 2026. And number 3, approve the fiscal year 2027 road striping.
Mr. George, at this time, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Beverly Hills approve the consent agenda as read. Support.
Support for Mrs. Kescometti. Ms. Brown, would you?
Mr. George,
Yes.
Ms. Rajusco,
Yes.
Ms. Kescometti,
Yes.
Mr. Mercer,
Yes.
Mr. O'Gorman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you. On to the business agenda. There are 2 items on the business agenda this evening. First up is the DNR Deer Management presentation. So, by way of a little table setting before I hand it off, Mr. Rothy to do introductions. Our hope here this evening, we've got a lot of interested people in this. We've tried to prep for some of the questions. The goal is to figure out what, to educate the community on what the options are for a community to undertake to manage a deer population or to not manage a deer population, and why you would choose one of those. There will be an opportunity as we move through this for questions. So my sincere hope, I have had probably more deer conversations than sewer conversations or potentially road conversations. I've talked to a lot of people about it. So I understand we have a variety of opinions on this issue. I do know there are some people who are very much deer first. There are people who are very much in favor of the notion there are too many deer. And there are various reasons, such as understory growth, your favorite plant, all kinds of reasons, safety. We've got a couple here that are have some young that are problematic currently. So, understanding there are a lot of opinions on this, we will have a spot for public comment. The only other item on the business agenda is a fairly quick item. So, right after the business agenda, we'll have public comments. We will take questions as we work through. So, if somebody has a question, you want to step up to the podium, or if you want to shout it out, we've got our representative from the DNR right here who can repeat it so we make sure it gets into the microphone for the recording. My hope is not to take a poll in public comments, because I know that we can get 100 people to say get rid of them all and 100 people to say leave them alone. So there will be plenty of time for this. What we're here to do is take as much advantage as we can of the time with the expert in this issue. Here are our options, ask questions about those options. Then we're going to talk about how to move forward. And there will, quite possibly be, some direction, hopefully coming out of the end of this, as to what we want to do to manage or not manage our deer population. So we do have a timer for public comments. We do, if we get to the point where we're approaching public comments, I might ask for a show of hands just to see how many people plan to make a comment, which will help inform whether we want to keep that to a slightly shorter time so that, I can stay here as long as anybody, but, we can also do polls other ways. So trying to leave it up to everybody to get out of it what they want, but first things first, I'd like to make sure we take advantage of the time with the expert. So, Mr. Oakley, having said all that.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Garrett Olson, wildlife biologist with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, who is here to speak about urban deer management, biology, process, and options. I'm going to turn it over to her this time.
Hello, Council. Thank you for having me tonight. Everyone else, thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Tara Colton. I'm a wildlife biologist with Michigan Department of Natural Resources. I oversee Oakland County, Genesee, Lapeer, and part of Livingston County are the areas that I cover. Tonight we'll discuss urban deer management, and I like to do that in 3 different parts, starting with 1, biology about white-tailed deer, 2, the processes that communities can take towards management, and then 3, which I'm sure most people are interested in hearing about, are options, and those options can vary depending on the goals of the community. And once those goals are identified, those options then can guide which way we go. I did want to acknowledge that a colleague of mine put together this presentation, Chad Stewart. He's the Survey and Wildlife Interaction Unit Specialist. So this, some people may have seen before if they've been to some other city councils that DNR has attended. So to dive right into things, to go over biology of white-tailed deer, they are somewhat different than their rural counterparts. They are the same species, however, the life histories are very different when we look at rural deer and urban deer. They are still the same animal, however, we typically see higher survival rates of urban deer, reported as high as 87% in some areas. We also see increased reproduction. I'd like to say that even just behaviorally they're different. So if you were to walk out your front door here and see a deer eating your hostas probably, that deer most likely will lift its head and look at you, potentially even walk towards you if somebody's been feeding it, versus if you were in Lapeer County out on our state game area, if you were to see a deer, that deer is most likely gonna hightail it the opposite direction. So just behaviorally, they do act different. Reproduction of urban deer is also known to be higher. We tend to see increased reproduction, so much so that as 1.8 fawns per doe. So typically we're seeing does have twins in urban areas. I'm sure some people have even seen triplets being born. If a fawn that's born this year makes it to about 80 pounds by December, they can also be bred their first year, which is not typical for animals within their first year of life. We also do not see reproductive senescence. So deer aren't going through menopause. They can breed ranges of urban deer are smaller than their rural counterparts, and that's because historically they can make a living on less area. So there's a lot of resources available in urban landscapes, so they don't have to expend a bunch of calories traveling around on larger home ranges such as their rural counterparts. So all of this coupled together can typically lead to higher deer densities that you see in urban and suburban communities. Not sure if anyone's familiar with the George Reserve. It's a research area that's owned by the University of Michigan. There's a lot of landmark studies that have come out of this area regarding deer populations. It's a 2 square mile enclosure, fenced enclosure. Research studies all the way back to the 1920s. There was a scientist that put 6 deer in this enclosure to study population dynamics. He put in 4 female deer and 2 male deer in 1928. If you fast forward 5 years, that population grew all the way to 180 deer. So when we talk about deer populations, we see exponentially deer are increasing. This study then was repeated in the 1970s. A different scientist put in approximately 10 deer. Same time frame, about 5 years later, 6 years later, they had 212 deer within the enclosure. So nearly identical growth rates between those 2 studies. And this is just to demonstrate how quickly urban deer populations and populations are given optimal conditions. Another thing I want to touch on are changes in the landscape. This is a aerial imagery of a portion of Indiana. You can see that there's large farm fields, there's a river corridor moving through there. It looks like a great place to live, to be a deer. So this was in 1999. If we fast forward this image and look at it in 2008, the landscape looks pretty different. Mostly developed at this point, small neighborhoods, golf courses, there's still that river corridor.
moving through there, but pretty drastic change in the landscape. From the deer standpoint, I would say that this is an improvement. Deer love corn, they love soybeans, it's a great place to make a living, but with those areas typically come traditional management techniques like hunting. You switch to a landscape like this, you're not seeing those management techniques. Now there's plenty of hostas, there's clover, there's no traditional management being done, and there's plenty of food and consumption on the landscape. The other thing I want to discuss is carrying capacity. Some of you may have heard of this before. In the field of science, with wildlife sciences, we talk a lot about biological carrying capacity. This is basically how many deer a given habitat can support. I'd argue that we don't want to manage for biological carrying capacity. This is typically when we see the population living, but they're not thriving. So we'll see a decrease in body condition, a decrease in reproduction, higher fawn mortality. Typically, diseases can spread or outbreak, and then there's a lot of social stresses that can occur. The other carrying capacity I want to discuss is the social carrying capacity. This is the number of deer socially that people will tolerate until they are considered a nuisance. This is where deer management gets very polarizing. This graphic here is pulled from another scientist at MSU. He refers to acceptance capacity. I would refer to that as social capacity or social tolerance here. But this graphic does a good job at illustrating the challenges that communities can face with deer management. It shows these different capacities here. So that green capacity that's lower, we're looking at wildlife population across time, and the line depicts a typical population growth of a deer population. So over the course of time, you see that deer population grow, and those folks that have the social tolerance and that green capacity think, hey, there's plenty of deer, we're fine with where things are, problems aren't that bad, I could even see more deer, we're not that bothered with the way things are. However, the population can continue to grow exponentially, and we end up in that blue area. This is when some of the people that were initially in the green area that didn't have issues now are saying, socially, I can't tolerate this, this is too many. I would argue that most people are typically going to get fed up with the number of deer before the area reaches biological carrying capacity. This is how efficient white-tailed deer can be. Their population at some point will reach that biological carrying capacity, and you will see a decline in health. Typically we'll see this in like EHD outbreaks or some sort of disease, but the population will decrease and then slowly start to rebound. Typically, communities will come to us about deer management, and they come to the table with some ideas already in mind. A lot of times, I'm sure you've probably heard voiced concerns over the deer, and that could range from concerns regarding disease. Specifically, we hear a lot of concerns regarding Lyme disease. I do want to make sure folks know that deer play a role in that cycle. They are not responsible for actually giving Lyme disease. The virus is typically picked up from field mice, but they are a role in the cycle of Lyme disease. Another concern we hear a lot about is habituation. So like the picture here, you can see the guy in the hat taking a picture of the deer is pretty close. We see a loss of fear. A lot of people sometimes will be feeding wildlife or deer, and they can lead towards inappropriate behavior, what we call habituation. And there can be aggression sometimes displayed towards dogs specifically. Another concern we hear is landscape damage. That's a big one. So I can't plant flowers in my yard. They eat the hostas, they eat the arborvitaes, you name it, I'm sure there's a list. That's another concern from people. Deer in a forest with very little understory. That picture in the center there, you can see there's not a whole lot of nutritional value in that forest for that deer. So that might be a concern. And then another concern we hear a lot about is deer vehicle collisions. So kind of move into the process of things. There's a few slides here that are adapted from Emily Pomeranz. She's a professor at MSU. She used to work for DNR as a human research specialist, human dimensions research specialist. So some of this is pulled from her work. She's done a lot of work in, like I said, the human dimensions, but with urban deer specifically. So she kind of developed this process for community-based deer management and decision making. So this process was made up of kind of the feedback loop here, pretty intuitive for most people, but you're you're thinking about engaging in deer management, you're not sure where to begin, we tell folks that they need to start with phase 1, which is defining the problem, so making sure you know what that problem is. Then you lead to phase 2, so making decisions, and this is done by clearly identifying objectives and goals. Phase 3 would be implementation, about how you go about based on your goals and objectives, and then phase 4 would be evaluation and adaptation. So we hear a lot, I'm sure you've heard it. We think we have too many deer, how many should we have? This is where I would tend to push back a little bit and assess of, do we have a problem? So we really want communities to focus on the impacts that deer are having, not necessarily the number. So let's say, for example, you have 1,000 deer out on the landscape, and the deer vehicle collisions, there's some landscape damage, but we can kind of tolerate where the level is. So there's really not that much of a problem. However, you have a community that has 5 deer, and they have this rare trillium that they're very proud about, that's what they find their identity in. And they can't have that rare trillium in their community because those 5 deer are destroying it. For them, 5 deer is too many. So this is where it's really important to identify the problem and then identifying where you want to go from that, what your goals and objectives are. So we want folks to make sure they can collect information to define that problem, whether that's through, a questionnaire to residents, tracking if there's been any illnesses, tracking deer vehicle collisions in the community, horticultural problems, landscape damage, or if there's a botanist on staff or someone like that monitors health, if that's something that's important, we want to make sure that folks are identified. Change, where, when it's happening, who it's happening to, and then what that severity is.
Does the Department of Health track the tick-borne illnesses by geography?
I don't know how the county or Department of Health would track that.
Okay.
I'm sure it goes through like a doctor's office, it gets reported, but I'm not sure if it's reported to like the local county. I'm unsure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I will say there are a ton of seats down front, so if anybody wants to filter down through the middle, there's a bunch.
So like I said, after you've identified the problem, the next part is developing goals and then outlining those goals even more with measurable, specific outcomes, objectives. And so an example of this is all hypothetical, but let's say that in the last 10 years, you guys have seen a 50% increase in deer vehicle collisions. That's the problem. We don't like how many deer vehicle collisions are. So the goal is we want to reduce deer vehicle collisions. That's the goal. We want to take it a step further and make sure that you guys can make a measurable, specific objective underneath that. So being more specific, you could refine it and say, we want to reduce deer vehicle collisions by 30% in the next 3 years. Then you guys can help guide your actions to your objectives, and then that allows you to monitor if you guys are reaching success in the program or not. Sometimes communities at this point, when they're in this process, decide to get a deer committee together to consider different options and help work on these. Sometimes communities feel like they have the process, they've been through this enough that they want to take it and just go forward with it themselves. So the fun part, which I'm sure is why everyone's here, management options. I guess I want to state this with, these are pros and cons with every single one of these. If there was a quick, cost-efficient, effective option, everyone would be doing it, and I would not be here tonight. As we can see by the number of people here, this is an extremely hot topic, and people, once again, have very different social carrying capacities with deer management. So I just want to make sure that everyone takes that into consideration. I'm here once again to provide guidance and information. It's ultimately the municipality's decision on if anything is to be done and how it is to be done. So the first thing is no action or response. And so close to this is people could see this as a compromise. This might be when you guys assess, do we really have a problem, and decide, is there really a problem or not? It's also inexpensive. Cons will say that people view this as an inaction. I would like to state that if there is already degradation occurring to habitat and there's already conflicts occurring, these will only continue to happen and increase if this would be the response process that the city decided to move forward with. Just to point out, this is a picture of a browse line. I'm sure folks have heard that term before, but you can kind of see basically everything that a deer can eat, basically from its hind legs up, has been eaten. It doesn't get much clearer than that as far as the impact that deer can have on landscapes throughout the community. Another non-lethal option would be fencing and repellents. I'm sure a lot of homeowners here themselves have tried to do what they can. Pros is it can exclude deer from specific problem areas. It's relatively inexpensive. However, it does require maintenance. There's no guarantees that this works. A lot of folks aren't going to plant flowers and then cover them in nets. That's not the point, that they want to have flowers. And it doesn't solve a community-wide problem. It's very specific to the landowner or whomever is putting in a repellent or a fencing deterrent. Another management option would be hunting in the form of like managed hunt. So this would be relatively inexpensive to communities. There are communities that do this. They're highly regulated. Folks will do this either in the form of like an archery program, and it provides economic stimulus to the community. A lot of hunters will pay to participate in this type of program. And from the research, it is seen to be supported by numerous individuals, those that do participate in hunting and those that also do not, because they see that the animal is being used for food and for consumption. Cons are that there are some types of hunting, depending on the program that would be implemented. I have been told that folks have seen this type of program be implemented. It kind of becomes a good old boys club where folks come in and all they want to do are shoot large bucks, which does nothing towards the reduction of the deer population within the area. So that's not appealing to a lot of folks if that were the route things went. There obviously are local concerns regarding hunting in communities from a safety standpoint, and there also can be access issues. So depending on how the community is set up, there are some areas that are more suitable for this than others. So if you are implementing something like an archery program, taking into consideration parcel size or access for people to participate in. I can tell you have a question.
Yeah, can you just expand on just taking out the bucks isn't going to solve your problem?
So the females are the ones reproducing, so they're the ones having fawns. One buck can breed several does, but that's why we typically tell folks if they're trying to reduce the deer population, you want to reduce the females because they are the ones reproducing and typically having twins, if not triplets, within the area.
All right, thank you.
Another management option would be sharpshooting. This is where either a contractor, trained professionals come in and can quickly reduce the deer population. They're typically seen as managed and safe. I would argue that they are managed and can be done very safely. The folks that I have worked with in the past that have done these types of activities are very well trained and highly skilled to do this type of work. Cons to this is it can be relatively expensive. There's not a phone book full of people that can do this type of work. So there's few entities that can do this. So it is rather expensive and it can be very controversial. Next option would be trap and relocate or trap and remove. I'll put a big X over that. Relocation will not be an option. That's not allowed in the state of Michigan right now, so that's what I will say. Trapping and removing could be an option. Pros to this is that there's no projectile that's being fired, so folks may see this as a safer option. It allows for a trap to be placed in specific areas that otherwise might be difficult to remove deer. Given if you have high density in a certain spot where maybe hunting would not be safe, this could be an option that would be used. Cons are that it can cause high stress to the deer. It's labor intensive and it can be expensive because of all the labor involved with it. And then, like I said, relocation would not be an option. So to move into a few non-lethal options, contraception, birth control for deer is pretty talked about a few years ago. It doesn't seem as much of a conversation these days, but to get into contraception is a lot of people think it's a good option because it doesn't fire are a lethal production. It does prevent future fawns from being born into the population. Cons are it is expensive, and it doesn't actually remove the deer that are causing a problem. So the one thing about this being an option is it's not reducing the number of deer you currently have, it's only reducing the growth rate. So to just make that connection there. It's also seen as difficult, if not nearly impossible, to achieve results in a free-ranging deer herd. Deer don't know boundaries, they don't know jurisdictional boundaries. They probably do have smaller home ranges and have typical daily movements that they're making, but it's really hard to do unless you have the majority of deer that would be treated with that. That being said, I did want to go into the two federally approved FDA drugs that are on the market for this. The first one is called Gonacon. It has to be administered through a hand injection. It also requires a multi-year booster. So basically, after the first year, you have to administer another booster to this. So you would be required to trap the deer, inject it, most likely tag the animal so you know the individual that's been treated, and then you would have to do that again a year later. One thing to note is
Can I, again, quickly, sorry to interrupt, we do have a bunch of seats down front, so if anybody wants to come sit, please do. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So, like I said, these are federally approved drugs in our country right now. They are registered through the EPA, not FDA, sorry about that, as a pesticide, but they are currently not registered for use in the state of Michigan through MDARD as a pesticide that can be used. So this is not an option. The second drug is Zonistat. So this one can be administered through hand delivery, a jab stick, or remote dart delivery. This drug encourages, or I guess recommends, that it's boosted at 2 weeks after the first dose and then each year following. So once again, you would have to most likely trap the deer, mark the deer, and then follow it up with multiple booster applications. Once again, this drug is also not registered for use in Michigan through MDARD as a pesticide, so it's also not an option right now.
So none of the medical or pesticide options work in Michigan?
The contraceptive options are not currently available for use in the state of Michigan because they are not approved through MDARD.
All right. Thank you.
Another non-lethal option that we hear a lot of folks ask about is sterilization. So this is when you would go in and trap the deer and do a surgery where you're removing reproductive organs, either an ovarectomy or a tubal ligation. It doesn't fire a lethal projection. It once again also prevents fawns from being born into the population. The downside to this is it's very expensive. It once again doesn't remove deer from the population. It's only reducing the growth rate. And it's very difficult to achieve successful results in this. A lot of studies have looked at this. Once again, in free-ranging deer herds, you typically would have to treat between 90 and 95% of the adult females in your population. I'm sure some people are aware that Ann Arbor did a sterilization program as a study. They worked with white buffalo, and the results are available. I'm sure if anyone wants to read them, they can Google this. But they did show a reduction across their two study areas between their south study area and their north study area. However, I did want to bring light to the fact that they were doing two different options as far as sterilization and lethal removal. So over the course of the study, they removed 432 deer lethally through a deer cull, and then 78 does were sterilized. The department has not seen strong evidence where this activity has been successful at reducing deer populations and reducing conflict in a free-ranging deer herd. Because of that, we not recommend it. However, if this is an option of interest, additional conversations can be had with staff above me. This is not currently an option that's permitted through our urban deer conflict management policy that's in place. This would most likely go through another avenue within our division.
Can I just ask a quick question about this?
Yeah.
Ann Arbor has a lot more rural areas around, so I mean, I'm just thinking about the veterinary side of this. To sterilize a large animal, we don't have a facility around here, and then also we can't transport them. So for Beverly Hills, is this truly even something that we could consider, or are the logistics of it essentially, I mean, are they possible at all?
So there are, I don't know every study with this that's happened, that's done this before. Some folks will dart the deer and take them to a centralized location and work with a group such as White Buffalo or whomever else they would identify, whether that's like a veterinary clinic or somewhere else to do this type of surgery. And then they typically issue a reversal drug and let them go. I know it can be done. I don't know logistically as far as how Beverly Hills is set up, how that would be done.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where we get a large animal into a veterinarian.
Yeah, it would require most likely partnering with an entity in like a research capacity to help assist with this type of program. That would then be responsible for doing all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Did Ann Arbor start exclusively on sterilization and move to the cull, or did they have kind of a parallel tracks?
Same time. And the fun one, reintroduce predators. We'll put a big X through that one. It does get brought up, so that's why it's in here. A pro is returning species to where they historically were. However, it would be very socially unacceptable, is my guess. It would also be very expensive. I'm sure if we think we have a deer problem, we really don't want to turn that into a mountain lion problem. So that being said, there is no one size fits all or magic solution. If there was, we wouldn't be having this conversation. There are 4 major components to look at when deciding what management option is going to be best suited for your area. That's going to be the cost, the efficacy, the speed, and the controversy involved with whatever option. You will never be able to have all 4 at once. So you're going to have to decide between 2 or 3 of these and which components are more important to you when making your decision. And this is all going to depend on your values and what you are trying to do to solve the problem if there is one identified. That being said, that is everything I have. This is my contact if people want to call me. And thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you. And you switched off of the contact information. Somebody was trying to.
Oh, I can put it back. Sorry, guys.
So thank you. Please don't go anywhere. I'm sure we have some questions. Start here, start out there. Okay, we'll start. Yes, Committee.
Thank you, Mr. George. Thank you, Ms. Colton. That was a great presentation. I know there are lots of folks in the audience that have done some of this research on their own, and folks that have said, okay, we understand what practical options are for this community, and I think people might like to hear more about how a hunt would work in a community like ours, and maybe specifically either the managed hunt or the contracted sharpshooting. And if you could maybe talk about communities like ours that have been successful. So when I think about this, one of the struggles that I see is, our densely populated neighborhoods and limited natural areas. And so I think about, okay, if we do a hunt in our park or our nature preserve, the animals know the good eating is out in West Beverly, right, where the landscape is, right? And so are we going to be able to be effective in a community like this? And so maybe if you could talk about that a little more and give us some examples of who's doing this well that we should look to, and then how we move forward and get started on such a thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of communities that are doing some form of urban deer management. Meridian Township has been doing urban deer management for years. They are a little bit more natural landscape than here. So they do have areas where they can do managed hunting. Typically that is done through some sort of highly regulated archery program. And that can be set up however the municipality decides is best suited for them. I will say a lot of communities will make it highly regulated in terms of a lot of times they'll require like a background check, they'll require a proficiency test in order to make sure that the folks that would be participating are skilled enough to participate. As far as, parcel size of what that would need to be done, I think that can vary depending on how the deer are throughout the landscape. Like you said, I'm sure there's areas that are more hot spots, and that's where, when you guys look as a community, where is the problem occurring? I'm sure geographically there are areas that are less tolerant or are having more problems than other areas, and that might help guide where management could be targeted, as well as learning. I'm sure a lot of these deer have similar movements daily that they take, or they could change seasonally as well. But as far as that archery hunt, it can be done. As far as parcel size, I can't give you like a specific acreage or amount of land. I do know you need to take into consideration, obviously, when using archery equipment, that deer, once shot, can take some time to expire, so they could run off. So that's something that would need to be taken into consideration as far as, you know, access. If there's private landowners that would want to participate or not participate, if there are areas that, like you said, are natural landscapes that deer would maybe be in, whether that's a cemetery or a natural park or a golf course, those could be all areas that potentially could participate that might have a larger area. I know Meridian, like I said, does an archery program. They also do couple that with a deer call that typically is led through their police department. So their law enforcement personnel are also lethally removing deer. So typically each year they have a number of deer that they're trying to do removal through their hunting program, and then whatever is not harvested through that program is then typically done through their police department. There are other communities this past year that participated in a deer call. So the city of Southfield and Farmington Hills both implemented deer calls through a contractor where they worked with the contractor to identify parcels for removal and work with them specifically on, you know, what they could and couldn't do, where they could do it, where they couldn't do it, and kind of developed a contract with them through that specific contractor for doing targeted removal. And I'm sure there's more to your question that I didn't get to.
Maybe if I could, Mr. George, a follow-up. I think a number of years ago, a big point of conversation in Oakland County was Rochester Hills, right? They were sort of the flagship community, you know, all over the news all the time about deer conflict. But I understand they don't do a lethal control program anymore. So do you know why some communities have tried it and are no longer doing it?
So I don't know the history of Rochester or Rochester Hills, if there ever was a lethal removal program. So I can't speak to that. I'm unsure if there ever was a program. I do know that currently they aren't working with us as far as issuing a permit for some sort of lethal removal that they would need for an out of season call. So I haven't had anything on the record with them. The only folks that I have worked with in the past were Southfield, Farmington, and Farmington Hills. Thank you. Specifically.
If I may just ask a clarifying question real quick, just as far as the managed hunt option goes, what I'm hearing is the DNR does not impose any sort of minimum property size or parcel size. You know, it's obviously what is safe and practical, but as far as a minimum legal threshold, there is none, correct, as far as that goes?
So there are hunting seasons that are already in place. There are licenses available. So that is an option that's already on the table. We're in an area where I'm assuming that there's local ordinances against a discharge of firearms or a discharge of archery equipment. So there would need to be some sort of jurisdictional ordinance changes to implement some sort of program like that. You could implement a program that follows hunting seasons that are already in place when seasons are set and follow those, but there is no like minimum parcel requirement.
Do you know if there's any guidance? I would assume somewhere someone has guidance about how the legal underpinning of doing this on private land, because part of the challenge we have is that we have limited public land available to do this on, and there are lots of places along the river where we have houses that back up to it, and we've got some large lots, but I would have to believe there's something memorializing the permission that.
Yes, I would work with obviously legal to develop whatever rules or restrictions or, you know, a permission slip or guidance with that. I do think Farmington Hills had some sort of sign up essentially, where if people were interested in having their land available, they could contact the city. I don't know the documentation from there, what was included in that document, but they probably have some sort of legal document that's drawn up if private landowners were interested to participate. I also think they were interested in gauging interest if, trying to collectively pool private landowners. So if there was a portion of an area where multiple landowners all within a same area were interested, they could collectively pool, 5 folks together for access. But they could probably provide more insight into that.
Thank you. Other questions before we take some community questions? I'm sorry?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. Very nice presentation, Ms. Colton. Thank you. I appreciate kind of the factual matter of it, not really taking sides, but telling us both sides, so that's nice. Lived in the village for about 24 years. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience that have lived in the village a lot longer than I have. It seems to be that we're kind of at the acceptance criteria level of being the threshold where we're really not comfortable with this anymore. So that, just wondering how far we are away from the biological carrying capacity then, and why it didn't seem to be as big of a problem. But yeah, I've been here a lot more than the 5 or 6 years in each study, that exponential growth of it. Were there disease that came in years ago? Is it because there's less hunting outside? I don't see that they're pushing, that I don't know. I'm just wanting to kind of figure out why we're all of a sudden getting to this point, because there's just a lot more deer.
Yeah, so I do think obviously over time that population has started to grow exponentially. I would argue you're not at the biological carrying capacity at this point. I'm sure it could be higher. Like I said, you would start to see a decrease in reproduction. You would see body conditions start to decrease. You would see higher fawn mortality. We do see sometimes outbreaks with disease. Specifically, one of them I can think of would be EHD that typically occurs in the fall. That can occur also in rural settings as well. So I want to clarify that there. But if it were to get into a more densely populated area with deer, you could see a bigger die-off of deer occurring, which would decrease the population. I don't know of any EHD outbreaks in Oakland County. We typically try to track that every year. We had a lot in the southwest portion of the state in the last few years, a little bit north of Oakland County as well, but I didn't have any major die-offs recorded within this area.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yes.
Ms. Colton, one of the things I've read is that in communities that have done some sort of population control, as the population number goes down, that reproduction rates go up. So where deer maybe were having 1 or 2 fawns before, it becomes more common that they have 2 or 3 as population numbers go down. And so the effort in to reduce the population is pushed back by their natural population dynamics. Is that true?
You bring up a very good thing that I want to touch on. So one thing I guess I want to mention is if any sort of management is implemented to reduce the deer population, this isn't like a one and done situation. This is typically a year after year kind of thing. So once you guys define goals and objectives and you're working towards that, or you get to where that tolerance level or your social tolerance, hey, we're pretty status quo right now, it might be a few years where nothing has to be done. But then at some point, like you said, that population is still going to continue to grow. They're still going to reproduce. I would say if the environment supports it, they could see reproduction once again go back to that 1.8 fawns per doe. And so once again, as that population is increasing, if you're towards the top part of that biological carrying capacity, you will see reproduction rates drop. If you are to drop that population, they still could have, that reproduction rate that I discussed earlier. But yes, just to clarify, this is typically not like a one and done type of thing. If people start to do a reduction in deer population, this is going to take continued effort. It might be initially a few years at a time, and then, like I said, it might be able to go a few years with nothing being done, but then you might get to the point where you're doing something every 4 to 5 years.
I have a follow-up question. So I have a follow-up on that. So Farmington Hills, Southfield recently did a call. Mm-hmm. I heard that they got about 70 deer in that. Do you know if that's accurate? And
I have the numbers. I cannot tell you them off the top of my head. I
Okay.
should have looked at them.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And is that good? It seems to me that 70, maybe that's a good number, but it seems to be that that's, for that big of an area, kind of a drop in the bucket.
So I would say initially, if anything like that were to be implemented, that first year is going to be a learning year. So whomever the city would decide to contract with, if that was the avenue that, the way things went, that's going to be where the program is, you're learning at that point. So I think anything that you can remove at that point should be seen as a success. That's once again where I don't want folks to get hung up on a number. And so we're looking at the impacts that deer are having on the community, not necessarily the number of deer. So we want to see, yes, a reduction in deer numbers, but I don't want to say, are we successful or not based on that number. That's where, once again, we want communities looking at, okay, we have too many deer vehicle collisions. We want to see that percentage drop. So how much is that percentage going to drop once we start doing a lethal removal and removing deer? Maybe they got 70 this year. Who knows what it would be next year? But you start to see a decrease in the deer vehicle collisions. You might. That's how you're going to know if the program is working or not. So I don't want people to get too hung up on numbers.
Right, that's one measure of deer vehicle collision. We could try to find out some
Correct.
other type of metrics to use if
Yep.
you want to measure that and so on. Do you know if those communities to our west and south are planning on doing another one this year or later in the year or next year?
From my understanding, they are, but I haven't received any
Okay.
documentation requesting anything
Okay.
at this point. So
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
One more question, maybe one more question.
You're good.
Do you know if MDART is considering approval of those two pesticide options?
that I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Softball. What happens to the deer when you do a call?
So that is up to the city. We would
Typically.
Yes, we would encourage donation of the animals. There are several programs out there like Hunters Feeding Michigan, Hunters Feeding the Hungry, that are an option for deer donation. So the venison is used. It's typically sent out to local food banks, so nothing is wasted, or
Thank you.
donated to local churches or folks in need.
And I forget if it was from a different version of this presentation or from other research, but I do understand that if you begin a cull, you still have a period where they're climbing before you see the effects of that.
Yes.
And you start seeing the reduction. Do you know if any of these communities like Meridian Township potentially started with the professionals and then took over management on their own by way of a managed hunt?
So Meridian kind of does a joint thing. So they do an archery program. I don't know initially if they started with both. So they do lethal removal through their police department that does targeted removal and essentially as like a sharpshooting or cull. But they also have a managed hunt that folks can participate in. I don't know if those started at the same time or if it started with PD removing deer and then they brought in a hunt after that. And now they kind of do both of those collectively. But that could be something that you guys could look at.
And by way of reference, I just looked up Meridian
I was
Township.
going to say, Meridian Township has a fabulous website. So if folks are interested in learning more about their program, they have it all on their website for folks to view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it looks like Meridian Township is about 8 times the square miles of Beverly Hills with about 4 times the people, so lower density for sure.
Could add to that, I spend almost all my free time in Meridian Township. There is city type areas, but it is also very rural. Like there are multiple horse farms. There is a lot of huge nature areas. Like I remembered this February when they were doing the controlled hunt. The park that they closed down is probably a good portion of many of our subdivisions here. So it is a little bit of a different situation for them there, just because, I mean, my horse is directly across the street from Meridian Township, and it is, I mean, there's probably 10 or 15 large livestock farms with open fields, and so it does make that a little bit easier. But if any, I can reach out to residents there and find out more information from them if you want me to.
And I can also provide the contact for their natural resources individual that deals with most of that program as well.
Okay. Other questions from council? Should we take some? Can we, residents, anyone have questions? If so, here's how I'd like to manage this. My job is to just try to keep this on the rails. So since I don't think we have a mobile mic to hand around. Hey, look at that, we do have one. So this will make it easier. So if anybody would like to be a runner, Neil or someone, that'd be great. Would be greatly appreciated. Should be pretty easy, so just pass it back to the middle. So we will hand it off, we'll take questions one at a time, and the goal here is to, we're looking for clarification, any elaboration on what we heard on the options. Where'd the mic go? We already lost it. Hey, look at that. All right, start there.
Hi, I'm Marta Kelly, and I live on Hillcrest in West Beverly. And some of my comments today, my glasses.
Ma'am, what I'd love to do, we've got time for comments. What I'm trying to do, because our friend from the DNR is going to be leaving, so I'm hoping to get most of the questions for her out first. Great. Super.
I wrote them all down, so it's not off the top of my head. So how does somebody like us know when a deer is sick? They're acting strange anyway. They're not afraid of us. They're not afraid of dogs. How do we know if one of them is sick? That's one thing.
So I can answer that question. So there's a difference between a sick animal and a habituated animal. So an habituated animal is going to be an animal that's lost its fear of humans. Typically, they're accustomed to being around humans. They have no fear. They feel, I guess, emboldened. Sometimes they'll have aggressive behavior. Most of that time, that is due to the fact that somebody's feeding them within the area. A sick individual, you're typically going to see, like I said, the body condition's not going to look good. You'll see rib bones, you'll see hips protruding. Sometimes there can be nasal discharge, there can be diarrhea, all sorts of things, just like when humans get sick.
Okay, thanks. I asked a question for the council. I have a dog, and the deer aren't afraid of my big 80-pound lab. What can I do to protect my dog? The deer comes at him, can I hit it with a stick? Am I going to get in trouble for hitting a deer? That's might be sarcastic, but when a deer doesn't back away from 80-pound lab, that's a concern. There was also the note on Facebook Village. People warned to keep their dogs and not walk on Riverside this past week because a doe was protecting her fawn. So we have to send out alerts like that. Isn't this a point of concern? For me, it is. Also, the deer poop make dogs sick. It gives them giardia. My dog had that from eating deer poop, and that affects their stomach and their intestine system, so that's also not good. And just the last, can residents volunteer that their yard or their home be used as a sharpshooters? Because that was the problem in Southfield, Farmington, and Farmington Hills. It was reported that there was such small public space that they couldn't get the 400 they wanted to. They only got 70. But folks, out of that 70, they fed over 9,500 meals. So there is a benefit.
Thank you. If you could address the issue, and specifically I asked this question before the meeting, if we could get a little context around the aggressive deer currently terrorizing West Beverly, because I know there's some people who have interacted with that animal. So
yeah, I definitely understand the concern regarding that. So we are in fawning season, so does have fawns this time of year. Typically we see that occur May and June. The doe is going to do what any mama would do to protect its baby. So anything that it perceives as a threat, it will be aggressive toward. Typically, that's most likely seen if folks are walking dogs. For some reason, dogs really set them off. Sometimes you'll see it just with a person. This is typically a behavior that can be seen for a few weeks. So while that fawn is immobile, so usually 2 to 3 weeks, that doe is going to be on high alert. I would advise folks to alter your walking routes. Don't take your dog on that street, which I know is irritating and frustrating. but that behavior should subside in a few weeks. These are calls we get every year. It doesn't just happen here. We get calls in other areas with does being or displaying aggressive behavior because they're trying to protect their fawn. I obviously also always tell people if there's an immediate threat to human health or safety that you need to call local PD. They are the ones that can respond quickly and expeditiously, and if something needs to be done, they can do something.
Thank you. All right. So we see the hands. They're working from the back to the front, I think, with the mic. So we will get to people with hands up.
Hello, my name is John King. I'm a 43-year resident of North Georgetown subdivision, just west and north of Country Day High School. Over the 43 years, we've seen an increase in deer and the pain in the neck of trying to protect our hostas and our flowers and everything else. There's rabbits that also kill our plants and stuff. But the thing in the past 2 years that has concerned me more than anything else that I would say we need to do something is the appearance of coyote. And in the past 2 years, we have noted numerous coyotes who are not there for the plants, they're after the deer. And I fear for the dogs in the neighborhood. We've had 2 coyote attacks on dogs, and I fear the kids playing out back. So whatever is done, and whatever the coyotes have increased, I'm sure it's the size of the deer population. I want to throw out a couple statistics that may be correct or incorrect, but let's say there's 1 million deer in the state of Michigan, and 100,000 of those are in urban areas like Ann Arbor, Farmington Hills, Beverly Hills, and such. Of the 900,000 that are out there, I'm sure that the DNR every year says, okay, we're going to issue X amount of bow license primarily for the does, and X amount of gun license come the hunting season, November 15th. And that's to control the 900,000 so that they don't become 1.4 million. Can you shed any light on what the DNR is doing in rural areas? Are you trying to simulate that in urban areas, or is the geography such that they can't even compare?
So I'll start with the first part where you brought up coyotes. Coyotes are highly adaptable creatures as well. I tell folks when they call me with similar concerns, you can find them in a Walmart parking lot. They're amazing creatures. There's tons of studies in the Chicago area. They have a research study that's been going on for about 20 years in downtown Chicago, where they have collared coyotes literally going down Michigan Avenue. So broad daylight, middle of the night, it's very interesting information. The concern about, aggression, there are seasons in place for hunting and trapping of coyotes. There are also nuisance animal control companies that can be brought in to do a targeted removal of coyotes. That's an option for anyone as a landowner or the municipality. So we have a directory of nuisance animal control contractors on our website. That's not endorsing anyone over another one. You can find your own, but if there are specific coyotes that seem to be exhibiting inappropriate behavior, it might be worth looking at a targeted removal of specific individuals, and that can be done through a nuisance animal control contractor. As far as hunting seasons and rural and urban landscapes, to kind of go back to what I discussed in the presentation, the DNR has hunting seasons in place to help manage deer populations. Those are statewide. Anyone can look online, the seasons in place, to see what equipment restrictions there are, what tags or licenses are available for them, and the season dates. Season setting is currently in process. That being said, that is a management tool that folks could use anywhere. There are local ordinances in place, such as urban areas, specifically like Beverly Hills, against the discharge of firearms or hunting equipment, typically for safety concerns, that prohibit that activity. The DNR is not prohibiting that activity, so I just want to make that very clear. there are reasons that those are in place, obviously for safety concerns. It can be done under a managed program in certain situations where appropriate. But as far as managing rural deer different than urban deer, we do that collectively through our hunting seasons that are in place.
Yeah.
Ms. Colton, I just want to ask a follow-up. Mr. King's question. I'm not sure if this is what you're getting at, Mr. King. Is there a concern that if a community wanted to do a managed hunt, that enough licenses are available? Like, I don't know if that was part of the question.
If that was part of the question, we're not restricting that. So.
Hi, sir. Hello. Is this on?
Feels like the mics are,
Okay.
there we go. Super.
Is there any chance of them hurting the deer? Or in hunting, what they do is they drive the deer to a certain area. Is there any way we can drive the deer out of the community?
How about you try and live with the deer? Right. They're here for.
Which direction?
Right.
I mean, I'm gonna go north, but
And we are the.
yeah, north.
Go west. Yeah, go west. Kent County wants the deer.
Yeah.
I think as far as like a deer drive, that's typically frowned upon. We want to practice ethical and fair chase hunting. So I don't see that being maybe a efficient option.
Chasing the deer out of the community by horns or rattles just to run them
You
out?
could do that if you'd like.
And then gather them into a certain area where then they can be handled?
So that would be potentially like
Would you like to speak?
Oh, yes. Yes, I very much would. Hi, everybody. My name's Paul Balo, and I live on the east side of Beverly Hills, and this council is very familiar with my presence. Hi, Kristen Kolob. I'm sorry to see that you've taken Tom Ryan's place, because he owes me a bucket of money. Anyhow, you are all looking at this in the absolutely wrong aspect. Do you remember that great program of the buckthorn extinction in Beverly Park? How much did that cost? How much did that cost? That was enormous. And all you did was create, hi Rachel, your yard is delicious. I see so many of my friends munching over there. It's a buffet. I love it. That buckthorn eradication program cost tens of thousands of dollars. And what it was, let's get back to some history here. Let's get to some history. Buckthorn eradication.
My job is to keep it on the rails. And I said we're asking questions to a representative from the DNR. We're not getting a history lesson. So if you have a question, please ask it. If not, please hand the microphone back to Mr. Johnston.
So, DNR, it's off now, thank you very much. So, how does a buckthorn, what everybody else, sorry about that. So how does a buckthorn eradication program work? Because you're trying to do the same thing here. The more buckthorn you eliminate, the more it encourages growth. The more deer you eradicate, it just brings in more from other communities. That's the point.
Can we hand the microphone back to Mr. Johnston? We're not here for a lecture on buckthorn. I get where you're coming from.
You don't understand the program. We're talking about deer.
I get.
The solution.
Mr. Balo.
You don't understand.
Yep.
That's the problem. You don't understand what the problem is.
Sir.
I know you. We'll talk soon.
It'll be great. Anyone have a question? Thank you.
Yeah, is the microphone on? Yeah. Larry Stawick, I'm Belvine Trail. I've been here for 35 years. I have several questions. Number one, the deer population has increased. In my area, we can see 4, 5, 6 deer every single day. I've had 17 in my backyard, 13 in my front yard. Sir, please. The other thing, I have a question for you. The the increasing of, possible Lyme disease, but there is another disease coming in carried by deer called alpha-gal syndrome, which is an allergy to meat products, and there's no treatment for that.
Sponsored by the USDA.
Sir, I'm a physician. I think I know more than you do on this subject, okay?
We'll see.
Lost my train of thought. The other thing I have, that's an issue, that has to be addressed also, and why the deer population has to be controlled. The other thing I have, during runting season, how aggressive are the male deer? Because can someone actually be charged at and hurt? Because I would hate to see a child hurt, from the deer during runting season.
I feel awkward turning this way to answer your question.
You can take the microphone off.
There we go. As far as, I don't know specifics regarding the disease that you're referring to, so I can't speak to that with deer populations, so I apologize for that. As far as behavior during the rut, you can see deer become more aggressive, obviously the males. We have had calls as far as aggressive behavior towards individuals. Typically, it's going to occur when somebody's walking a dog or people. I don't have any specific situations that I've been involved in with anyone being attacked during the rut from a deer that's just going through rut. That being said, there have been instances where obviously their behavior changes. There's a lot of testosterone in the body during rut. Deer that are habituated in nature, typically being fed by somebody. I have had instances where those deer have become very aggressive, and sometimes there needs to be like a targeted lethal removal of an individual. What was your question regarding Lyme's disease?
That's another issue that you have to be concerned about in the community.
Correct. So that's another metric like I referred to as far as, folks being concerned about prevalence of Lyme disease. I know there has been an increase in Lyme disease. I don't know the numbers from where they were 10 years ago to what they are now.
The other thing is that the deer can carry Lone Star.
The Lone Star tick just showed up in the state of Michigan, so from the south.
The disease process is not treated.
Can we make sure that when we're talking, we got a microphone, because we're going to put this online, hoping people learn from this. So if we have a conversation going and the mic can't
I
pick it
wish
up.
I knew more about all of the diseases with ticks. I do understand the concern. That is one of the reasons that folks want to do some sort of deer management, is because of the concern regarding diseases that can occur.
I'm Larry Wheathorn from Hillcrest, neighbor of Mart up here. Speaking of ticks, I'm just wondering, if we reduce the deer population, does that necessarily reduce the population of ticks, or once the ticks here, are they here?
So like I mentioned in the presentation, there's and I'm sure you're familiar with it, there's a whole cycle to Lyme disease and tick behavior. So deer aren't the ones that are carrying that virus. They're in field mice. They're needed to complete the cycle that causes Lyme disease. I don't know if the number would be reduced if the deer population was reduced, if there are ticks already here on the landscape. Obviously, if you're reducing the number of deer on the landscape and they are part of that life cycle, less deer, potentially less in that life cycle that could carry it full cycle. But I can't say specifically that it would reduce it.
Marilyn Antrim. I live on Riverside Drive, and I have been confronted by the aggressive doe twice. Am I allowed to use a 6-iron on her? Now, that's a really serious question. I don't have a big dog, but I need to protect him.
Yeah, I tell people if you have to protect yourself, you have to do what you have to do to protect yourself.
Discharge of a weapon within village limits?
I would encourage you, though, as well, once again, a threat to immediate human health and safety, call local PD. We also do have the law enforcement line within the DNR. It's the report all poaching line, but folks can reach out to that line. It's a 1-800 number. There's somebody there on dispatch 24/7. Hit option 1, that'll connect you with dispatch. You can tell them what's going on, and they can at least let the local conservation officer know as well.
I'm Steve Mackey. I live in the Huntley subdivision behind the police station. The two quick questions. Does the village have any data on how many auto deer accidents we have in a year?
We have data, but it is, I'm going to say, less than I think a lot of people would assume because of the fact that most of our roads are 25 miles an hour. So there's some, but I don't. Yeah.
Okay. The second question, more for you. Is there a geographic range that a herd of deer stay within? That I mean, does it go 10 miles around or?
So as far as home range sizes, that could vary depending on the resources that are available in the landscape. If they are able to find everything they need, food, water, shelter, within an area, their home range is going to be smaller, and you're not going to see large movements, which is typical in urban settings. As far as the specific number for here, I can't tell you what that is, but it is going to be less than their rural counterparts, yes.
I was curious whether DNR works with or collaborates with DHHS Michigan to see what the correlations are between incidence and prevalence of deer-related diseases, the distribution across the state. There are a couple maps online that show the risk across all the counties, but I don't know what the incidence and prevalence looks like and whether that actually maps onto deer density. I know it's a cycle issue. And then the other question I had was with respect to the donation of the deer meat. Does that, I know for hunters it's a thing, but in this particular situation, if we were to choose that kind of an approach, does that go through testing before it ends up on a plate?
So to answer your first question, I don't know if anything's done with our wildlife health lab folks, if there's any overlap as far as deer densities and where tick prevalence is occurring. That I'm not aware of. That might be more from a university standpoint. I'm sure there's folks within MSU like Extension that are also looking into that, but I don't know internally if there is any collaboration with that. As far as venison donation, I don't know. There are testing requirements that are done with our program when folks donate deer through our Hunters Feeding Michigan program. As far as where folks were donating deer that were removed in other areas, they don't necessarily have to go through that avenue. But most places, so like local churches or food banks, I mean, I guess as far as concerned with the meat, the Hunters Feeding Michigan program doesn't take deer from CWD positive counties. I can tell you that. The deer that were also removed were removed using non-lead. So there wasn't concerns regarding lead fragments in the meat as well.
Ma'am, can you have the...
Somebody asked what CWD is. It's chronic wasting disease. It's another disease that is in the state of Michigan that is caused by a misshaped prion protein in the tissue of the deer. It's not curable as of right now. There's been no link between CWD and anyone that consumes meat that would be positive from CWD contracting anything at this point in time, but it is a chronic disease that is 100% fatal when the deer gets it. So it can take sometimes up to 24 months for the deer to exhibit symptoms, but once they have it, it is fatal.
Through the chair, I'm Ken Siver, Mayor of City of Southfield, and I don't have a question, but I have answers to some of yours. So I don't know if you, the microphone was right here, so. Great. We contracted with the United States Department of Agriculture, and all of the deer were dressed that were culled in Southfield, Farmington, and Farmington Hills. We did, this is a pilot, so we did a small small program. We were hoping for more than 70, but again, we limited it to golf courses and our nature preserves. We did bait these areas. Our cull was done late at night, dead of winter in these areas, and it happened in January and February. We had weather issues some of the nights, so we were very pleased with it, with the results. We put a referendum out on the ballot about 6 years ago. 2/3 of Southfield residents said it's time to do something about the deer, and so we went ahead and did all this kind of studies. We did this kind of forum, and again, the majority of people said it's enough. We average 2 deer car accidents a week, and some of them are very, very serious because we have a lot of major roads in the city of Southfield. We will be doing the cull again. We have interest from Franklin as well as Livonia to join Southfield, Farmington Hills, and Farmington. We have also jointly, the 3 communities have hired a zoologist, someone who is, I asked permission, sir.
He's a mayor who's done a cull, so I'm giving him the time.
Thank you. At any rate, if there's any other questions that the council had, I could answer them quickly. I don't want to take everybody else's time.
Address the cost of butchery.
We spent $19,000 on the cull, and again,
Not on the butchery, yes.
no, that's all we paid, and then there were 2,300 pounds of venison was donated to food banks, and that was 9,240 meals were provided.
Was that free donation?
That was part of the our contract with the United States Department of Agriculture.
Did you do it at the same time that Farmington Hills did it?
No, we moved through the 3 communities.
Okay.
Because it was the same people.
Same winter?
Yeah, it was January, February 2026.
Just recently?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And when are you scheduled to do it again?
We're going to do it again next winter, and it will be bigger. And Southfield has a lot of 2, 3, 5 acre lots, so we are planning to do on private property. We haven't got all of that worked out yet, but that's the direction we're moving in. Our program will be bigger next year. I do want to say to all of you, we're a welcoming community in Southfield, but don't send any of your this gentleman that suggested that over here, I go, oh, no.
We were going to go north. It's fine.
No way I would ever move to your community.
Point of order. Paul, Mr. Balo, last time, or we're going to have you go to the hallway and visit with the director. We're done interrupting, please.
Keep going.
We're done. We're done interrupting. I appreciate that.
Right.
Can you, sir, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say.
Other question?
Any other?
I got a question for you. Was the call done from tree stands?
No, it was done out of pickup trucks.
I thought Farmington did that.
I'm not aware of that. I know in Southfield we had pickup trucks.
I can tell you that Farmington was not done from tree stands either.
No, but they were baited.
Don't worry about the projectiles going anywhere they shouldn't do. I know in tree stands they go right to the ground.
No. So I know he's familiar with USDA Wildlife Services that did the removal. These folks would not do anything that was unsafe. So there was no concern regarding projectiles going where they shouldn't.
Again, ours was a pilot program. We wanted to see, before we went full bore, wanted to see how it went. Interestingly, we've had no people come to our city council and object.
No people, any balls.
Yeah, don't come over, please. But anyhow, I thank you for the opportunity to share this because we really would like Beverly Hills to join this effort.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I better sit down.
Can you hand the, thanks, you can hand the mic off behind you. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Cyber. Dr. Cyber, thank you very much. I don't know if people are familiar with this gentleman. He has a long, distinguished career as a teacher, a superintendent, and now a public servant. So thank you. I appreciate you coming.
Sean Milchamp, East Charlton in Huntley. Ms. Colton, thank you for the comprehensive presentation. If you remove, you talked about goals and outcomes. If we as a community, in general, decide that the goal and outcome is to decrease the deer population, taking the social feelings bit of it aside, if this was your community, knowing, kind of the density and the suburban nature, which of all those options would you pick? What is the most effective to drive the numbers down, at least the first couple of years?
This is my favorite question. So I'm going to give you my PR answer. So I do appreciate you making sure that folks, once again, reiterate defining goals and objectives. So if the goal is to reduce the deer population, there would need to be some sort of lethal management implemented. How that's done, once again, is up to the community. Looking at the community, how it's configured, identifying where those potential hotspots are, landscape, that type of thing, access may guide what may be the best option or the best suitable option for the community with that information.
Okay, that was a very PR answer. Second question, are there numbers, and I know you said don't focus on numbers, but just in terms of sort of removing the feelings portion from the impact, are there any numbers that show kind of like the number of deer here versus population density compared to other areas? Are we like in the same ballpark? Is it worse here? Is it?
So I can't give you density estimates, so we don't have those population estimates per municipality. You'll hear folks refer to like an ideal density. You'll hear like 15 deer per square mile, some folks talk about. That can vary depending on who you are and where you're at. That's why I want folks to look at the impacts that deer are having, and that's why I gave the example of 1,000 deer, and yeah, there's some issues, but the tolerance level is there, versus 5 deer, but you don't have any of that special trillium, and so those 5 deer are a problem. Because you guys could pick a number, hey, we have X amount of deer, or we want to reduce the deer population by 100 deer. You could remove 100 deer and still have all of those negative impacts occurring. So you've reached your goal, but those negative impacts are still happening. Therefore, you still have a problem. So that's why I don't want folks to get hung up on a number.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Alan Studi, Dunblane Avenue. It is my personal belief that the population took a notable increase during COVID, and my theory is there were a lot less vehicles on the road and deer crossed roadways that they previously had not. I would like to know if you have any data to support my theory.
I have no information to support or deny that.
Hi, my name is Tina Kaplan, and I live in Kirkshire. I can see that majority of the people here are really in favor of a call, and I'm not, and I have a statement that I would like to read when we get an opportunity to do that. But what I'd like to know is, all the people here don't represent the village of Beverly Hills. How are we going to make a decision that represents the entire village and not just the people here that clearly want the deer to be called? I don't want the deer to be called, and I know my neighbors don't, and there's plenty of other people in the community that don't. So who are we representing? The people here that are complaining and that don't have the same love for deer and concern, and what actually brought me to the community of Beverly Hills was nature. And we have trees, and we have wildlife, and the reason, I mean,
Ma'am.
that's what makes our community so lovely.
That's part of your statement for comments, for public comments. So if you've got any questions for the DNR, that would be great.
Okay, no, I guess not.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah, we have an opportunity for public comments.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina.
Hello, my name
You're
is...
asking how we're going to make the decision. Council has to make the decision.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So the council will decide with the input of the village?
Yeah, that's why we're doing this.
This doesn't represent our village.
Okay, we'll get to that later. I'm trying to figure out if we have questions for our friend from the DNR before she has to.
Hi, my name is Susan Everhart. I'm a neighbor in Southfield, but I'm also interested in this topic, so thank you, Mayor. Question, I see this on TV, and I don't know how realistic it is. The Yukon vets that go and castrate the animals in the wild, is that even a possibility? Like, would that be a simple, easy, I mean, they're sharpshooting, knocking them out, and then castrate them. Is that a possibility?
I have heard this brought up before as a question. It would still involve quite a bit of implementation of a program, so it would probably be similar to the surgical sterilization. Also, if you weren't to catch all of them and remove, one buck can breed several does when they come into estrus, but it would still be pretty labor intensive, comparable to probably surgical sterilization for does.
Wasn't that done in the
Mr.
metro
George, can I ask a follow-up question on this?
Wasn't it done?
Sir, you don't have the floor.
Didn't they do that a
Ms. Bolton, or Ms. Colton, I'm sorry.
You don't have to
Can I ask
answer.
a follow-up
You don't
question
have the
to our question back here?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I know you talked earlier about, the buck to doe, ratios. Why don't we just kill all the bucks? Right? Like, why don't, like, and I don't mean that to be facetious, but in a targeted urban deer management plan, why don't you just target taking out the males?
I think once my mic, oh, there we go. I got shut off too. I think probably for similar information that I just gave, as far as if you don't get all of them, one individual can still breed several females. So you want to remove or target the ones that are actually reproducing.
Okay. Just seems like there's a lot more birthing than there are donating. I don't know.
Other questions before we?
Hi, I'm Dave Jensen. I live on Sylvan Lane in West Beverly. It sounds like you were going to talk about this, but what are the next steps? Are you going to do like a referendum as they did in Southfield? And how will you make the decision about what happens next?
We'll get to that towards the end of the meeting.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Tabby. I live in Coryell. Our area is mostly unfenced, but I'm curious how we could go about finding the density and finding the population that we're dealing with, because I've lived here for 32 years, and when I first moved in, you would see a deer on a rare occasion, and now I have dozens in my yard really daily, and my yard's been denuded, and they are stripping bark. And it's true, we don't have the car incidents that other bigger cities have. But at what point can we find out, what we really need to do? I mean, we all love the animals, but we don't want to see sick animals. And I know there was a lame deer that went through my yard, and it was horrific to see. And there are some that look very ill. How can we do a study? How can we embark on that journey? Because I think we need to know the numbers.
So if the city was interested in getting some sort of population estimate, which once again, estimate, you're never going to be 100% positive, the number. there are different avenues that you can go. There are different census or surveys that can be conducted. A lot of folks these days will use infrared drones to do a survey, so flying drones typically at night. Typically, most of the time it's done in the winter, so there's no vegetation cover. You can get a better idea of what's across the landscape. That can be costly. In greater areas, helicopter surveys are done. That would be pretty large to do here. As far as the area, if you're looking something to just kind of get a rough estimate, you could implement something even just like a driving survey. So establishing a driving route that provides good coverage of the city, knowing that you're not going to see everything that's out there, but if you were to conduct that at sunrise and sunset and repeat it multiple times, that's going to give you some sort of rough number or a starting point, knowing that once again, if there's areas that have fences or areas that you're not going to be observing, you're most likely undercounting what's out there, but that would at least give some sort of number.
And part of the conversation you and I had, because I knew this would come up, and somebody had talked about municipalities using helicopters to try to count. And, you know, the part of this conversation is if we're defining a problem, we don't need to know the number. We need to figure out whether we feel we have a problem. And if you're talking about, you know, observable populations that we feel are excessive, or there is a threat to safety, or there is a, you know, how do we define the problem? And it might not involve knowing the number. Because if we say, well, that, you know, if we find out it's 80, I mean, what does that tell us? You know, and so that's the challenge, is trying to figure out whether we collectively feel we have a problem that needs to be addressed or not. Where'd the mic go? There we go.
Hear it now. Okay. My name is Terry, and I have lived here over 45, 46 years. And when I first came to this community, there was a lot more woods. There was a lot more nature. And I've seen it all just about disappearing. And what else I've seen is properties that were once one house now have 6. Once had one house now have 3. You know, a piece of property just went for sale at the corner of Beverly and Evergreen, and they said, you know, you could build 6 houses on this one parcel. You know, it's great for developers. So what's happened is we have created this problem. Let's get the other side of the story here. The deer aren't the problem. Human beings have created this problem. And why is our solution, and I'm asking you this, always to slaughter these animals? Why is that the solution? That the only way to deal with this is to slaughter them, you know, because we've created this. We are responsible.
I appreciate that, and
why do we slaughter? Why is always slaughter?
I'm not going to make the DNR responsible for answering that question. That's why they provided us options: do nothing, do a call, medically manage it. You know, so we have options. I understand what you're saying. That's not a DNR question. That's an us question.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay.
Mine's not a question, but when we were talking, the New England Journal of Medicine in last month's issue had a skyrocketing chart on Lyme disease caused by the deer. It's a real problem in the upper Midwest and the East Coast. And their answer was, you've got to get rid of the deer.
Any other questions?
I've got one.
How many deer were in the state of Michigan 100 years ago? Yeah.
I was going to say, deer were once extirpated. They didn't exist at one point in the state of Michigan. So quite a change in history.
So you talked about trapping and removing. Does that involve euthanasia then?
So it would be lethal because there is no relocation.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So, and how are they trapped?
So that picture that I showed kind of, there's different traps out there. Some folks will refer to them as clover traps. So they would be baited into that trap and then either captured and lethally euthanized, essentially.
And they can use that meat?
Yes.
And you said something about they become habituated to the they adapt to the fact that there are traps, so they might learn to avoid them?
Some animals will become either, we call it trap happy or trap shy. So obviously if there's something new on the landscape, sometimes animals can be weary of it. If something seems odd, some animals go, oh, there's food, and walk right in, and they don't care. So it just kind of depends.
Does anybody do, you were saying there's some communities do archery and guns. Do they also add in trapping to that mix?
I don't know anyone that's actively trapping to remove deer. I know it can be done. As far as communities that are doing firearm or archery, I don't know if anyone's doing a combination in Michigan, or I would assume most of them are probably archery programs within highly populated areas. Depending on the community, there could be areas where firearms would be appropriate as well.
Any other questions before we?
Mr. George, can I ask a follow-up on this question here? I think I know the answer, but maybe you can help. I hear often from counterparts in northern Michigan and the UP that they're very sad about how many deer they don't have. Why doesn't the DNR allow relocation? And is it disease containment or tell us more about that?
No, good question. So if that were to be the case, you are correct, you're on the right track there. All of the biological contents of that deer are getting moved. So there have been studies that have relocated animals. We typically see high mortality, so survival rates are pretty low for individuals that are moved and relocated. You're plucking an animal out of an area where the environment is completely different and dropping it off elsewhere. And then for disease concerns, there wouldn't be movement because of that. We don't know all of the biological contents that could be in that deer that could be moving, and we don't want to move that across the state.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we? Yes, sir.
I have a question for the village attorney. Do we have to get some kind of insurance if we have a hunt?
We'll probably have to, we'll look at that if we decide to go down that route. I would assume they're required to be insured, whoever's doing the call. But again, if you're dealing with a government agency, all these municipalities have the same insurance. That's a question for another day, but we'll definitely answer that. Anyone else? We're approaching, I think, the point at which we can probably let Ms. Colton get on with her evening. Any last questions before we do that? I would round of applause for our guest for holding down not only the presentation, but like an hour of questions. So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Not a problem. Once again, my contact information was up there. If you weren't able to grab it and you do have questions, council will have it and you can get a hold of me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
The QR code is on the door. At the last page of the presentation is Ms. Colton's contact information.
If you scan the wrong QR code, you're probably voting for 10th grade president. So, glad the DNR could come, give us some information. Thank you all for the good questions. What we're going to do now, we have one other agenda item. If you look at the agenda, there's one other business item that I do not assume will take a long time because it involves us agreeing to pay for about 10% of a road project, which seems like a pretty good deal. And that's the 13-mile road that I ran into the other day, not realizing that it was a little closed. So sorry about that. But that we'll get that done. They'll get that done in, I'm sure, short order. So what we will do, we'll do that one. That shouldn't take long. Then we can move on to public comments and then finish out the meeting. So on to number 2 on the business agenda, Mr. Rothy. That is the approved cost participation agreement with the City of Southfield for the 13-mile road resurfacing project.
Yes, before this body this evening is an agreement for cost participation in the 13-mile road.
You picking him up, Mike? I don't know if okay, he's got you.
Mike's got me.
Yeah.
All right, so 13 Mile Road is being resurfaced between Greenfield and Southfield. The city of Southfield is leading the charge on this project. The village is responsible for a cost share due to the way we share responsibility of this part of 13 Mile. I would remind the council that a few years prior, I think it was 2020 or 2021, a similar thing was done when 13 Mile was resurfaced between Evergreen and Southfield, right in front of Village Hall. In that case, we were in the driver's seat and Southfield paid us a portion of the project. This agreement, again, the project's already started. This agreement would memorialize the arrangement, and the village would be responsible for a payment of $348,720. The total construction cost of this project is just over $3 million. So we're paying a very small portion, and we are not paying for the signal work at some of the intersections, only those that impact us. Attorney Kolb or Director Johnston can answer any questions you may have, and I also just want to thank the mayor of Southfield for being here. I thought that was why you were here at first, but I appreciate that your knowledge as well.
All right, so the construction cost for this is $3 million, $3.062 million. Construction engineering is another $459,000. Preliminary engineering was just under $250,000. So the total cost is $3.765 million, and our cost share is $348,000. So less than 10% of the total cost. Lovely that there is federal funds totaling $2.5 million to absorb most of the cost. Questions from council? Yes.
Mr. Dorothy, could you just remind us, and maybe some folks don't know this, what is the arrangement with Southfield for the segments of the road, and how does that arrangement work?
Director Johnston is marching down the aisle to answer that.
Thank you for being recruited earlier.
Hi.
Hi.
So our maintenance agreement with the city of Southfield for road maintenance is from Southfield Road to Evergreen Road is Village of Beverly Hills responsibility on a full maintenance level. Things like potholes and snow removal still get taken care of on the middle boundary. And then Greenfield to Southfield is the maintenance responsibility of the city of Southfield.
Just so that we don't have to split the road down the middle, right? So we just each took a mile section?
Right. If we were each to do a road project and just do half the road, that would.
Gotcha. All right, thank you for the reminder.
Other questions? Hearing none. Mr. Mercer, do you have a motion, please?
Thank you. So I'll make the motion to approve this. Let it be resolved. The village, Beverly Hills Village Council approves the agreement with the city of Southfield as presented and authorizes the village president and village clerk to sign on behalf of the village. Funds are available in account number 202-449-970.00, attachments forthwith.
Support.
Support from Mrs. Kescometti. Ms. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Rajusco? Yes. Ms. Kescometti?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Motion passed.
All right, thank you. All right, that concludes the business agenda that we kept light this evening so that we could focus on the DNR presentation. So we're on to public comments. I am happy to, anyone who wants to comment, but show of hands, how many people think they're going to comment, because I want to know how many, where to set the time. Okay, so we keep a timer. We're going to keep it at 4 minutes. Like I said, my goal, you're welcome to come up, state your position. We will have time for a poll. I heard the applause earlier. I think the majority of the audience, I know where you stand. I am willing to hear from everybody who has any opinion on this issue. This is also, since it's public comments, open to any and all on any matter. So when the podium is free, step to the podium, please. Give us your name, your street. Mr. Adam is going to be running our countdown timer over here, so we ask that you keep it to the timer length so that everybody has a chance to get their comments heard.
You can hear me. Very good. Bill Eisman, Valley Ridge Drive.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'd extend my thanks to the DNR for sending such a great representative this evening. Many of my neighbors will have spoken online at gatherings or in council chambers previously or will tonight. Many hold dear inviolate, to be treasured, whatever may come. I have only compassion for their warm hearts. Others talk of property damage, the risk to life and limb from auto accidents, disease transmission, and the other human conflicts that an overpopulated deer herd brings. I'm sympathetic to their feelings, but this is not my primary concern. I come here this evening as a representative of the Lorax. I speak for the trees. I speak for the shrubs. I speak for the wildflowers. These are the things that should populate our scarce natural areas. Our overpopulated deer herd is devastating the very ecosystem that they themselves depend on. By overbrowsing their favorite native plants, they subject those plants to extirpation. Man, we got to hear that word twice tonight.
Good job, Bill.
By their overconsumption, they make these plants unavailable for other animals. The insects, the small mammals, the frogs, the toads, the birds, in this interconnected web of life. Every ecosystem has an energy balance, and the one around us is really out of whack. We must return the deer population to a sustainable level for the sake of all of the components of the plant and animal community around us. We must not allow our natural areas to become the truffula trees of our region. Heed the Lorax. He speaks for the trees, the shrubs, and the wildflowers. We must reduce the population of deer.
Thank you, sir. Who's next? Step up when the podium's free. Not everyone at once. You can make a line. That's whatever works.
My name is Jeff Pinnanen. I live on 31724 Allerton Drive, so I live across from the park. I've made a decision that when you have an oak tree in your yard, you're providing food for the deer, your acorns. So I'm putting in maple trees to replace the oak trees that I have. And unfortunately, my son went up north and there's a lot of deer with ticks, and he slept with the dog, and he may have Lyme disease. So yeah, Lyme disease is a real problem when the deer and dogs mix in the park. That exposes them to Lyme disease, and then it will expose you as a human being when you cuddle with your dog at night. That could be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, ma'am.
Alan Studi, Dunblane Avenue. For over 2 years, I started regularly inquiring at the village office about plans to address the deer problem. I was tired of watching my vegetation in my yard be consumed. The answer I was consistently given by personnel at the front desk was, "We're waiting to see what surrounding communities are doing." That answer sort of irritated me. Fortunately, Farmington Hills decided to be leaders. In a well-publicized meeting, council meeting, a year or so ago, which I attended, and I have reason to believe someone associated with the village may have also attended, the DNR gave a rather telling presentation similar to what we saw tonight. There were two key takeaways from that meeting. One, if you aren't taking out at least a third of the population each year, the population is growing, which is basically the statistics you saw tonight. And speculation that the deer in our residential areas may not be roaming more than about 1 square mile. Following the meeting, Farmington Hills, Farmington, Southfield quickly committed to an annual call. So the wait and see excuses are now gone, but we sit here tonight and the village has still not decided to do anything. I ask the question, why? I have had up to 9 deer in my yard at one time. A fawn was born in my yard. A fawn was born in my neighbor's yard 2 doors down. That's disturbing because a doe is not going to give birth in a location that they feel is unsafe. And now we have a generation of deer who have lived their entire lives in our yards. It's now their home. The deer have literally killed plantings in my yard and seriously compromised others. I've installed over 200 feet of 7-foot-high deer fence in my backyard to attempt to mitigate the problem. I have deer netting on the evergreens in my front yard. And I live in East Beverly on a 100 by 100 lot. It's on a corner with houses on all other sides. There's no wilderness area nearby. So I fully support a recurring call. The problem is, as discussed here tonight, these are traditionally done in wilderness areas and parks, and there essentially aren't any in East Beverly. So if the 1 square mile theory is correct, something beyond a traditional approach will be needed to move the needle. And I'll speculate this is exactly why the Farmington Hills, Farmington, and Southfield call only managed to take out approximately 70 deer, because the deer are in people's yards. Wait and see time is over. I would say the situation is analogous to global warming. If you wait too long, you won't be able to solve the problem. We're at a crossroads, and aggressive action, I believe, is needed now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Global warming. Serious.
Hi. As I mentioned, my name is Tina, and I live on Kirkshire. I appreciate the opportunity to address the deer management issue this evening. I would like to propose that we develop a non-lethal humane management program. Reducing the number of deer will not resolve the deer-human conflict. I understand that some want to propose a deer call. I'm against that because I feel it's inhumane and because I love animals and can't imagine wanting to kill them, regardless of the reason. For those who don't feel the same as I do, deer calls do not work. Killing deer doesn't control the populations, as their high reproductive rate will quickly compensate for any deer removed. This would mean that each year we would have to kill enough deer to significantly reduce the herd and then continue to kill deer to keep the population from bouncing back. Our community would not want to fund this killing program forever. Killing deer is impractical. Once the killing starts, deer will move into areas off limits to hunters, and once it's over, they will move back to their original territory. As for Lyme disease, studies show that killing deer doesn't reduce the population of disease-causing ticks, and in fact, puts the public more at risk. The CDC and health authorities do not recommend hunting to control Lyme disease, as it hasn't shown to work. New scientific research shows that Lyme disease incidence and human health risks are affected more by the abundance of the larval hosts, which are white-footed mice and chipmunks, and the food resource that hosts rely on, which are acorns, than by the abundance of deer. As far as deer in the garden, which I understand is upsetting to people, the best way to address this is to replace plants attracted to deer with more deer-resistant native species, and to protect highly desirable plants with repellents or fencing. And I have some information about deer in the garden I'd be happy to provide the council that may be helpful to residents. Oops, I got it. Thanks. In terms of collisions, speed limits should be enforced. Fencing can be erected to prevent deer from crossing roads. Overpasses and underpasses can be installed, and we can mount activated flashing lights. I purchased a deer whistle. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. Had it installed on my car, and it's supposed to be very effective, but I think it may be over 25 miles, but we still have areas where it's 35 or so forth. So that might be something we could look into as far as the collisions go. And in closing, I'd like to say there will always be deer. The key is to learn to coexist. As our village considers deer management, I hope we choose solutions that address community concerns while treating wildlife with respect and compassion.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Nice work, Tina. Nice work.
Would you like me to provide this to you?
You can either hand it off.
On the stage, you want
Yeah.
to grab it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just set it there and we'll grab it. Thank you.
Yeah, Adam will take it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice work.
My name is Nancy Irvin. I live on Vernon. My name is Nancy Irvin. I live on Vernon. I'm here to speak on behalf of the deer. I love the deer. I enjoy them so much. I have a lot of deer that come through my yard, and I enjoy watching them. I enjoy the fact that two babies were left on the grass in our backyard, and we watched over them for 10 hours until the mother came back so that a coyote wouldn't get them. What I've done since we've moved here, I've only been here 3 years, I've adapted. I'm an avid gardener, and I now have plants and tons of flowers that they don't touch. And I invite anybody who'd like to come and see. I can't plant some flowers, I know that, and I miss them, but I've made up with a lot of flowers that they do not touch. And so I guess I'd like to talk about life and how wonderful it is for me to be able to see an animal of that size in my yard when they're free to walk around. I just think that's such an incredible blessing. So I'm just here to speak on their behalf, and when I hear the thought of shooting them, it hurts my heart.
Thank you.
Sean Millichamp, East Chelton, Huntley. I am sympathetic to all the people who have landscaping here about it. That's not interesting to me, really. I mean, I can coexist with that. But 35 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I had a friend just a little west of Beverly Hills on 13 Mile who hit a deer, tumbled over the railing and down the ravine, spent weeks in the hospital instead of here at Groves High School. That was 35 years ago. I think we all agree the deer are a lot more prevalent now. I myself have hit a deer, and I was going the speed limit. The car got damaged. I was okay. But if there is a chance of even one young person who's still learning the ropes on how to drive, preventing them from going through what my friend did, let's drive the deer population down. Humans first. And there was a lady who said that we were the cause of this. I will agree, yeah, we are the cause. But you know what? We also need to be the solution. We live here. If you don't like it, you can go out and live in the woods somewhere. But this is a suburban area. It needs to be functional. It needs to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Right, John, my 2 seconds. So this is a public forum. So indeed, I used to live out in Armada Township. No, that's Richmond Township, out in Armada. So 10-acre farm, I measured it out there, ran it. How many deer did we have? None. How many turkeys did we have? A few. For years, I took care of Southfield and 13 turkeys. For 3 years, I made certain that they got to bed every night safely. I followed them around at dusk. I knew where they were. I took care of them, made certain that they were taken care of for the night. They moved on. Nature took care of that situation. The reason that we have deer here is because we're here. We're the food source. When I lived way out in the middle of the woods and way out in the middle of the country, there were no deer. They are here because we are here. We must adapt. So it is their home. But if you want to go this route, why stop at the deer? Those Canadian geese are pooping all over the place. Why don't we get rid of them as well? You got chipmunks and squirrels that are producing Lyme disease and all sorts of other things and fleas and whatever. That's your tick source right there. Let's poison all of them. Let's get rid of them. Who needs them? After that, we'll be able to get rid of the hawks. We'll be able to get rid of the owls at night because they'll all be poisoned. We won't have to bother with them at all. So why go with working numbers? Let's get rid of the bees as well. Who wants to be bothered with all the bees buzzing around? Who wants to be bothered by carpenter bees? Get rid of them all. If you want to start being God, get rid of everything, because that's the road that this is leading to. That is the road where a particular population across an ocean is absolutely going, because they want to get rid of everybody. If you want to do something, do it all. If not, learn to live with your neighbor, learn to adapt. The deer are more than welcome in my yard, and I've got tons of stuff to eat, and they don't. But there are deer in my yard every day. They don't eat my hostas. In fact, I hate hostas. They can eat as much as they want. And boy, do I have an abundance of them, and I plant more and more and more. All the deer can come and live in my yard because I don't hate anybody. I don't hate them. They are more than welcome. I adapt. I live with what I have. I have an Oriole feeder out in the back of my yard, which is full of grape jelly, which is just amazing to see Orioles have returned to our neighborhood. It's wonderful. I go to Acacia Cemetery 2, 3, 4 times a week. I see all the deer that are there, and they're cool. They're just hanging out. I also see the coyotes that are there, and they're managing the population very, very well inside Acacia Cemetery. It's called nature. It's called management. The last thing we need to do is start screwing around and thinking that we know better than nature, because we don't. Look at where the world is right now with our government and how things are being managed. No, we do not know what in the heck is going on. You leave nature to do itself and you adapt. You've got friendly neighbors, you have not so friendly neighbors. Okay, you deal with them. So fortunately on my block, everybody's really cool with all the deer, and we've got a lot. So you adapt. So I would appeal to everyone who doesn't like my opinion and who doesn't like my attitude, maybe think about it. We got a few people here that do want to think about that. You have to adapt. So we live in their neighborhood. They were here first. They've been here for millions of years. We have not. Remember what this area used to be. This was all apple orchards and farms. My house was built in 1948. It was one of the first of the neighborhood in East Beverly. So anyhow, you get there.
I'm managing the meeting. I'll let him know when time's up. I was letting him finish his sentence.
Nah, you're fine.
Thank you,
fine.
Paul.
But
thank you, everyone who's keeping track of the beep.
Yes.
We're on
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Who's next?
Bill Harvey, Old Stage Road. Change the subject real quick. Sure. You're talking about repaving 13 Mile. 13 Mile between Groves and Losser is basically unpassable right now, and definitely can't do it on a bicycle. Please make sure you got budget and schedule in there to fix that one. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. We do. We have schedule. We're dovetailing that with when there's some federal money available. I believe there is a plan to do some interim tune-up, I'll say, to get us through. I know. We're trying to do it when we've got the federal money available. But thank you. It is on the list.
Anyone else?
Anything else? Anyone else?
Managers report.
All right. Hey, appreciate all the comments very much. Truly, we've got some work to do here. I don't know if council wants to have a discussion about which direction we want to go, what the sense of council is on how we want to proceed on this, on the deer issue, before we get to what I believe next is the manager's report. Or if you want to provide your comments in your comments.
Let's do comments.
Okay.
Mr. George, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe of you or Manager Rothy. I didn't ask the DNR representative because I got the impression maybe this falls outside of their purview. But if we wanted to pursue partnering with Southfield and Farmington Hills, do we know in-house the logistical next steps? How does the permitting work? How does development of the plan work? Like, do we know how to start doing that stuff?
I'm going to answer yes, because we can now copy. So I would assume, go right ahead. I would assume the next step would be to start borrowing notes from our neighbors.
Yeah, so my office represents Farmington Hills and Farmington, so I've already sent a message off to the attorney that I know handled Farmington Hills, so I'll have access to all the documents, agreements, insurance requirements, funding background, and so I can put together some information for council on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I would suggest then is we move on to manager's report. Council can provide their feedback. We come to the next meeting with it as an agenda item in a discussion of how to move forward based on the feedback we got this evening. So, Mr. Othie, manager's report, if you would, please, sir.
Yes, a few items to talk about tonight. The traffic calming for Beverly Road is going to be installed before our next council meeting. At our next council meeting, we'll have a discussion on the village's millage structure, long-term financial planning on what that structure should be, what the fund balance levels are. I want to give a thank you to everyone who just did anything with the Memorial Day Parade. I was able to go. It was great to see just thousands of people there. It kind of gave me a rejuvenation a little bit. It was great to see. So if you volunteered, thank you. If you supported, thank you. And it was a great community event to be a part of. On June 22nd, Hutch Paving will begin our road paving project for fiscal year 26-27. And the Smith Group presented the Wenbrook Park concept plans at the last Parks Board meeting. I heard there was a few people in attendance there. We have put that, the meeting isn't recorded because it takes place at the park. We did put that presentation up on the village website if people are interested in viewing that. So that's all I have this evening. Happy to answer further questions.
Council questions for Mr. Othie.
I have one, because everybody's asking me, can we give everyone an update on where we're at with the playground?
I really want to say the contractor will be there tomorrow. That's what we've been told. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not trying to make that sound negative, but we have been working with them. They got their contract books. They're working with the playground equipment company to get it delivered to us. They should be there tomorrow.
Okay.
And once they arrive and get the silt fence fully set up, we're looking at a 2-day turnaround time for demolition.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Other questions? Mr. Othie. Yes.
Mr. Othie, I know at last meeting we had talked about getting some, renderings or whatever about the new playground structure. So when they put up the fence around that area, if we can try to get at least something. So, coming soon to the.
Yes, we have several signs installed in the park.
Oh, I know.
Yes. They went up right after the Memorial Day. We got a few signs about with the rendering scale about the area.
Thank you.
Yep. And we'll do a groundbreaking of sorts post once it officially actually breaks ground.
All right. Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. Couple questions. One, I just want to make a comment that the parking lot striping at the park, I think looks very good. I was up there. I know that it gives a lot more parking at the park. It's a little different. You don't angle park, but I think there's plenty of room from what I saw. So I think that's great. Thank you. In our consent agenda tonight, there was striping and crosswalk to be done. We approved that. Do we know when that starts and when that'll end? I've kind of walk and run through the village, and I'm concerned that some of our crosswalks are in need of that. But I can't remember if it's before the fiscal year ends this year or if it starts next year. Next fiscal year, which would be, it's less than a month away.
I'll ask Neil to answer that one.
Sorry, Neil, I'm going to make you walk down here.
Get your steps.
I think he was looking up the answer.
Is it in there? Did I miss it? Was it in there when it said it to start? I read it, but I didn't see it, so I'm sorry.
I may not have been paying complete attention. What was the question?
So the striping that we're going to do for the crosswalks and walkways, we approved that tonight in the consent agenda. Is that starting right away? Is it going to be done this month? Is it happen throughout the summer? Is some of it this fiscal year, some of it next? I just was wondering.
No, so this year's striping will just be center line and edge lines for the major roadways.
Okay.
crosswalks and legend markings like school and stop bars and things like that will be next year. We're on an every other year cycle. So we'll do lanes 1 year, legends the next. Lanes 1 year, legends the next.
Okay, so what we approved tonight, is it for this current still fiscal year or start the next fiscal year?
For 27.
For 27, okay.
After July 1st, short
July
answer.
1st. Okay, thank you. Perfect. All good.
All right. I think that's it. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Ruthie? If not, back to the agenda. Council comments. Oh yeah, public safety. You want to look at that? Sorry, didn't want to skip over. Standing in the shadows back there. Director Arnold. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Not much to tell about public safety today. A couple of good things. We did bring on our 2 officers that we had waiting in the wings to hire on. They started their first day on Monday. One of them, nice young boy, graduated from the police academy on last Friday. The other one, a seasoned veteran from a suburban department. So we have kind of experience and inexperience. So we're looking forward to watching both of them grow into public safety officers. They are all cross-trained as well, so we do not need to send them to a fire academy. So it should be a fast track to getting them to becoming fully trained public safety officers for the Village of Beverly Hills, which puts us at our staffing levels that we wished for. We are fully staffed as of today.
I'm gonna applaud that because I think that's the first time I've heard that spoken about public safety in the 7.5 years I've been involved here. So
appreciate that.
So
As far as our calls for service for May, a little over 700. We did increase our traffic enforcement from April. We came up to 211 violations issued over the course of 171 traffic stops. We did experience 1 fire, moderate damage to the home, uninhabitable for quite some time, but no lives were lost, no firefighters were injured, so all the first responders and the residents left the fire tired but safe. That's really all I have to report today.
can I ask you one question that would be good for you to provide information on versus us? We had a question when it was publicized that we had authorized the purchase of a replacement ladder truck, which will take approximately 2 years to complete. The question was, what's the tallest building? Why do we need such a long ladder? And we were talking about the fact it's more reach than height, but if you could just maybe...
Right. So we have to have a height of a ladder that'll serve our mutual aid partners. Southfield has some higher buildings than us. Berkeley has some higher buildings than us. Franklin, Bingham, they also have some higher buildings than us. 100-foot ladder will easily serve all buildings in the Village of Beverly Hills, but it might not reach to what Southfield will need from us or what some of our mutual aid partners could need from us. That's why.
Okay. All right. Other questions? I will also provide a compliment. Everyone from Public Safety did a fantastic job with the parade. So
appreciate that.
Appreciate all their hard work and showing up and representing the village.
I will pass it along.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now on to council comments. Mr. O'Gorman.
Thank you, Mr. George. Just a couple things. One, thanks to the Parks and Rec Committee for pulling off yet another great, successful Memorial Day celebration. And I thought it was really well done for Mr. George for the speech and our guest of honor there for the memorial recognition at the park. I thought that was really nice. I thought it was well done. I want to extend my appreciation for everybody who came out tonight. I know that Tuesday night's not the ideal night for a lot of people to come listen about and talk about deer. For me, just perspective on deer, personally, on a personal note, I have seen a significant change in my 13 years here from deer being present in the backyard periodically to not being able to grow anything. I've given up on a vegetable garden. My personal kind of perspective from doing research is, we don't have a natural way in which the deer are kind of at the top of the food chain from an agricultural perspective, I'll call it, and they don't have an abundance of natural management. So the way I look at that is, is it our role to then manage those deer in a responsible way? I spent some time on Isle Royale this last summer, and in talking to some local folks, I saw what happens with an unmanaged population, because people are probably well informed that the wolf population dwindles handled on Isle Royale. Talking to the locals there, they came back one spring, and not suggesting this is the path under which we're headed, but they did reach that biological capacity. And when people came back in the spring, they basically had to kind of turn tourists away because of the smell, the death, the disease that happened. I'm not saying we're on that path, but seeing what I've seen in my yard, where I've had twins born in my yard, individual fawns born in my yard over the last 3 years, which never occurred before. And I did see one doe with 4 fawns. I don't know if they're all hers, but she was a regular in our yard. We've had as many as 17 deer in our front yard. We probably see deer every week in the yard, and we had 2 dogs that would roam the yard. So I have seen deer also from the standpoint of approaching people. I was raking the front yard one fall, and a doe was in my front yard, and I usually would just be able to walk towards them. They'd walk away. She actually started walking towards me, and they now do this stomp thing with their front feet to kind of caution me that I'm too close. So I do think that there's a responsibility on our part to balance what nature is not capable of doing in a suburban area. So I'm not suggesting a call or any direct solution, but I do appreciate everybody came out tonight on both sides of the discussion, because I also agree that the deer have a natural role and have a natural place, and we are kind of providing them the salad bar that makes them sustain very well here in Beverly Hills. But I do think without a natural balance within our community, we have some responsibility to act responsible to maintain the population in an appropriate way. So don't have a point of view on what that solution is yet. I thought it was great for the DNR to be here tonight and appreciate their presence to give us some options. And I think we'll be vetting those options over the near term, and everybody will have a say in that. So besides that, thank you, Mr. George. And again, appreciate everybody coming out tonight.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Cascometti.
Thank you, Mr. George. At the risk of just echoing what Mr. O'Gorman says, I largely agree there. And I don't know that we need to or intend to tonight to, deliberate on our next steps. But I think, a good number of people came out tonight. Not everyone is here toward the end. But, one thing we did hear from folks is, okay, so what are you going to do and who's going to make the decision? And so I think that it does, bear discussing with our council, legal council, not village council, what our next steps are, right? Whether or not we're going to form an advisory committee, whether or not we're past that. And I think, I appreciate the comment from my neighbor in Kirkshire who said, that this forum may not be representative of everybody in the community. And we know that's true, right? When there's a public meeting on a topic, it draws out the folks that are interested in that. And so I think we do have a responsibility to get some input from the community. I do, just my own personal perspective, I'll share for the sake of the folks that took the time to come here and want to know what we're thinking. I agree with what I heard from Mr. O'Gorman and from most of our neighbors. The thing that strikes me is the do-nothing approach will just result in this continued exponential increase in population. And I so appreciated the presentation from the DNR, but the one thing they don't have for us is very specific localized population data. And we have folks in the community that know, well, we have this size herd and they move from here to there, and they know the dynamics better than the DNR may. But the other piece, and Ryan, you touched on this, we continue to refill the salad bar, right? So I mean, this idea of a biological carrying capacity in a community like ours, I think is, I wonder if we could actually ever get there, right? Because that presumes, and you talked about the Isle Royale example. You see that classic chart of the wolf population, the deer population, and also then the hemlock and vegetation decline that comes with it. That doesn't happen in an environment like this because we continue to restock it, right? And so in a situation where the predator is gone and the prey population booms, and then the vegetation declines, Bill may be seeing the trillium disappear, but we keep refilling the arborvitae buffet, right? And so really we have to put our hands around what is our social carrying capacity in this community, right? And I think, Ryan, you hit it right. It's a balance question. I enjoy them as much as the other folks, and it's a big responsibility, right? To to take on wildlife management, but it is our responsibility, right? And so we have some hard decisions to make, but it is our responsibility to make them. So I appreciate everyone that came out tonight and heard the presentation and asked thoughtful questions. And, I think one thing I can say, you have our commitment that we are ready to act on this and ready to work on this and ready to talk about it. So I think more to come very soon. Oh, and then lastly, just a congratulations to all of our Groves graduates this weekend. So the class of 2026 is graduating on Sunday. So very exciting.
Thank you. Mrs. Rajewsko.
Made me sound like my mother-in-law. First of all, I just want to thank the community and all the volunteers, especially Janice Hausman, since she's here, for an amazing Memorial Day parade. I think it was the most entries in the parade that we've had in many, many years, and it was a wonderful event. The ceremony is always great after. I want to remind everyone that there's another great event coming up this Friday with Concert in the Park. So please enjoy the beautiful weather we're supposed to have and come and listen to the band. I want to remind everyone in the community that it is okay to disagree. We have been through a lot of conversations in this community in the past couple of years where we don't all see eye to eye. And I think what marks us as a community is how we navigate those situations. This council is going to make a decision on this, and there are going to be members of the community that disagree. And there are going to be people that think we should do more, and there are going to be people that think that we should do less. And it's our job here to represent all of you in navigating this decision-making process and making sure that we are all doing our job on becoming more educated on this. I learned a lot tonight. I want to learn more. I'm ready to take action and make some sort of decision, and I'm always open to hearing perspectives. I spend a lot of time in my front yard, and not a day goes by that my husband actually makes fun of me because he says I never actually get anything done because I just keep talking to people stopping by. But I can't be in the front yard and not have somebody ask me about what we're going to do about the deer situation. And I see it myself. I moved to my home and thought that I was going to build this beautiful permaculture oasis, and I can't grow any food. And so it's time for us to figure out how to do this and how to do it well, although it may not be perfect immediately, and how to manage the expectations of all residents, even though those that disagree with whatever decision we make. So I want to thank the DNR for coming out tonight, and for administration for making this happen and having a space that fit everybody, and for all the residents that came and shared opinions and perspective. And we still have a lot of opinion and perspective to gauge in the community. I think we've spent the past few years hearing from a lot of people that want to see this happen, and I think that before we make any decisions, we need to make sure that we also hear from the people that have concerns. And that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Drummond.
Just want to echo the other thanks to everyone in the community who helped make the Memorial Day Parade what it was. I know each one of those floats has to go through process of getting that float ready and buying candy and handing it out and having all that stuff. So I know the candy budget alone for many of those floats was several $100s. So you multiply that by the 40 or 50 floats we had in the parade, and it kind of just brings a testament to our small community and how everyone kind of comes together for that event. And it's great to see, especially with the whole purpose behind Memorial Day and remembering those who have fought for our freedom. So thank you for everyone in the community who came out, everyone who walked in that parade, everyone who took time out of their Saturday to really remember the sacrifices that have been made by those who served our country. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Care if I go, since we're just going down the line?
Sure.
All right. Sure. All right, we're just going to keep going linear. First thing, sidewalks are looking awesome. I'm so excited. I know there's a lot of work to do, but the retaining walls are looking great. I think there's not a lot left to do along Evergreen. There's some concrete work left, but it is moving along, which is exciting. exciting. The restoration is already taking place, so great to see the progress. So thanks to everybody for all the work on that. One of the things that I wanted to bring up while we're talking about striping, and this is probably a conversation for Mr. Johnston and Mr. Othie to have with the city of Birmingham, because it crossing a shared road, but it has become apparent that there is a need for more safe crosswalks between Beverly Hills and Birmingham. So I've had that conversation with several people. I know we received a grant recently, I believe almost exclusively for crosswalk improvements within the community, not leaving the community. But while we're swimming in that soup, if we could coordinate with them and let us know what council can do. I have a firm belief, if you want to come up and have the conversation. What I've told people is I believe right now nobody on either council is going to say no to safety enhancements there.
So I've already reached out to engineering in Birmingham and had a conversation with them, and they're equal feeling as we are about 14-mile road between Pearson and Southfield. And we know that RCOC is going to be redoing that road shortly, and they'll be open to ideas for that road before they resurface.
Great.
So we'll be combining forces, chatting with them about getting a crosswalk in at a good location. Hopefully more than one crosswalk.
And I would assume all the way down to Greenfield, wherever it makes sense, but I will support whatever we can do there. It's frustrating that it takes a tragedy to highlight the need, but thank you. So that I wanted to put on the list. The parade was awesome. I love. I am incredibly thankful that it was not 90 degrees and that I was not marching with little leaguers in polyester. But it is always fun to realize that about half of the community's in the parade and half's on the sidelines. I think it's just a great event. So happy to see so many people participating. So that was great. Love that the fence RFP is done and it's just on the list. We put the money in the budget and administration went and got the RFP done. So we're going to replace the beleaguered fence at Beverly Park that is a residential quality fence with something that is commercial grade that should hold up a little better. And hopefully we also get some replacement panels so we've got some spare parts for when it gets dinged up a bit. The right-of-way trees, super exciting. I again will state my position that I think there's a great opportunity all along the front fence of Beverly Park by the play structure. We've got a big blank there that I think could use some future shade trees. On board with the congratulations to the grads. I know we've got one on the stage that's got a grad maybe that's gonna happen. So we've got one graduation coming from the folks on stage, which is exciting. The honors convocation is Thursday night. And lastly, on the deer management conversation, I truly appreciate everybody coming out. I had a question from someone in the back row about why we only booked the little theater, and we had a bet on not a formal bet, but I was like, I think that will be more than enough space. And so we were kind of right in the middle between completely full. It looked like it was 2/3 full. So the fact that we got a couple hundred people to come out for the conversation, ask good questions, be respectful of everyone's opinions, I truly appreciate that. Isle Royal conversation is relevant. There is a time to intervene in nature. We had deer here before. We now have a lot more deer. So I don't think anyone's talking about getting rid of all the deer. I've had a conversation. This is completely independent of this, but I remember the conversation with my mom who grew up in Chicago and they had a little farm in Wisconsin, and she talked about how the deer population took over and there was nothing green from here down, and then the deer got sick. And so yes, the nature will figure itself out, but I'd like to not go through that if we can find a better path. So my ask would be that council members think about this. Let's put it on the agenda for next time. We'll ask administration and our legal counsel to be able to give us some information on how we would proceed if we decided to join the neighboring communities in that effort. And that I think we are aided by them already having that contract and us being adjoining. So that's all I've got. Mr. Mercer. Close.
I see how you've done this tonight. I stand between The end of the meeting. Yes, so this is my rock moment. I hope he's not watching.
It's normally my role, so I'll
Okay.
get a long list of bullet points.
I've got a long list tonight. Sit back. The next meeting is in 2 weeks. It's back at Village Hall. I can't wait to see you all there. So thank you.
Sound like a priest at Christmas.
I didn't tell him to bring money. I do appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I know a lot of people have left, but it was great to see the engagement of the community. Before I get to the deer management issue, I want to say that 2 weeks ago yesterday, I think it was, May 11th, right before maybe it's longer than that. It must have been longer than that, but I lost a really good friend and neighbor in a horrific vehicle pedestrian accident on 14 Mile, crossing 14 Mile near Bates. The Birmingham Transportation Commission is meeting, I believe it's Thursday. So if you're interested, you can go there. They're going to have public comments. And I think it's something that is long overdue. It's unfortunate that a tragedy had to make it maybe happen or come to light. Almost everyone I talk to in my area, which is where we cross that road all the time, the same way he did, and it was just a tragic accident. That being said, that meeting I think is Thursday, 6 o'clock in Birmingham, June 4th. I want to thank the Groves staff that's here tonight helping us. They put in a long evening. I mean, thank you.
Mike included.
So I appreciate that. And I also want to say that I thought the Memorial Day Parade was great, starting with the run in the morning, the parade, and then the memorial service. It was well attended, I think, all around, and I really appreciate the folks that make that happen because I think that makes our community. There are obviously things in our community that we have to address. One of the things before I get into deer management is maybe looking at electric bicycles and scooters. That's something else that we need to try to tackle in this community, something that could be far more dangerous than deer. Also, I think we need to start enforcing the policy of what is electric in our park, because at the Memorial Day Parade, or Memorial Day Carnival, we had some issues with that. So just something to think about. And if you're a parent, maybe tell your kids to be a little more safe and not ride those through crowded areas. As far as the deer management issue, I am empathetic and have a lot of compassion for those on both sides, especially for those who love animals. However, we have to be humane. If you go out and you plant deer-resistant plants, then that causes other problems. Either they go somewhere else within a neighbor, but if everybody plants deer resistant, they're going to have to get food somewhere or they're going to starve. That's not humane, okay? That's inhumane. So we have to do something about the issue. I've been here for 24 years. It's gotten worse, but really bad because it's taken off. We've hit kind of a capacity where it's just going to continue to be a problem, and we're probably going to start seeing a lot bigger issues. So I think we have to do something, and I look forward to that next step. So with that, I'm done.
Great. The thing I forgot because I didn't write it down, and that I'll say before I ask for a motion to adjourn. If you go to the village website and you go to the bottom left corner, and it took me a minute to find it because it's under the Text My Gov floating logo. If you knock that down, there's the link to Wenbrook information. On that page at the top is the Smith Group's initial rendering. Please keep in mind, this is them going out, doing a walkthrough, limited engagement. There is an engagement process now that we have something to look at so that we can get some community feedback on this. But there are some stunning renderings of the building. And I realize that it costs money to get to the stunning renderings. So that is part 2 of
the conversation, but this is an opportunity to figure out what we want that to be. Keep in mind that by virtue of the fact that the property was acquired partially with DNR funds, there are limited things we can do with the building. The most likely use is a nature center. That does not mean that we can't use it as a multi-function building, but officially it would have to be a nature center. So I think there's a great opportunity for the community. I also always try to remind people that it took us 100 years to get Beverly Park to where it is now, and we're still planning for improvements. So no rush on that, but as we work through the community engagement, bring your ideas of what you'd like to see there. I think there's some neat opportunities, but start with looking through the plan. That's it. If nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.